Jean Dubuffet. Le Havre, 1901. De Paris, 1985. Jean Dubuffet was not only fascinated by the work of children and amateur painters, but that of psychotics and others considered marginal by society. He called their work art brut, rough or raw art, and used aspects of it in his own, considerably more sophisticated paintings. For Dubuffet, real art is always lurking where you don't expect it, when nobody's thinking about it, or mentions its name. Dubuffet incorporated informal and ephemeral elements into his work, including grass, dirt, writing, and graffiti. He composed in a naive way, with a childlike, often crude simplicity. This approach appeared to be a radical and subversive challenge to mainstream culture and to the production of art itself, emphasizing, as it did, spontaneity while refusing to comply with accepted techniques and principles. Lifeline. 1918 begins studies at Académie Julian, Paris, but leaves after 6 months to paint on his own. 1924 gives up painting to run his father's wine business. 1933-37 returns to art, makes marionettes. 1944 holds his first solo exhibition in Paris to collect art brut. 1945 starts to 1947 shows crude portrait series of Parisian avant-garde. 1948 forms Compagnie de l'Art Brut to collect and show the art of the mentally ill. 1950-51 works on his Cours de Dame series, derived from graffiti. Le Voyageur sans boussole, translated as Traveler Without a Compass. This is one of a series that the artist called Landscapes of the Brain. Typical of Dubuffet is the sense there is little distinction to be made between the human figure and base materials. 118 by 155 centimeters, oil on hardboard, Pompidou Center, Paris, France. A jazz band, dirty style blues, the elongated forms, simplistic technique, lack of perspective, and limited, muddy palette are all in keeping with Dubuffet's work. This sextet of jazz musicians is presented face on, as they might appear to a child. 1944, oil on canvas, 97 by 130 centimeters, private collection. Le Métaphysiques, this deliberately crude painting of a woman, won the Cours de Dame series, is influenced by the graffiti Dubuffet saw on walls around Paris. The representation is basic and scatological, and suggests scribbles on a lavatory wall, with the harsh lines scratched roughly into the thick paint. 1950, oil on canvas, 116 by 89 centimeters, Pompidou Center, Paris, France. Closer look. Facial features: the staring eyes, bared teeth, and pointed nose set in a skull-like face are not meant to be realistic. Instead, they reduce her to a set of basic attributes. Nicolas de Staél. St. Petersburg, 1914. D'Adib, 1955. Exiled from his native Russia as a child following the revolution, Nicolas de Staél traveled widely before finally settling in France in 1938. His work was initially representational, but by the 1940s it was increasingly abstract and violently expressive in its dynamic approach, reflecting the dramas of everyday life and death. Dense, somber areas of paint were pierced with sharp edges of light to create a surface of strong contrasts. De Staél was trying to transfer his own experiences into paint, using a non-figurative structure based on cubism. From 1948 onwards, de Staél's palette lightened considerably, and soon became brilliant in its use of reds and yellows. 4 years later, he reintroduced figures, although their presence in his essentially abstract world provided some serious challenges for him. By now, de Staél was enjoying considerable success, exhibiting in London, Paris, and New York, but he remained a troubled man and eventually took his own life. Lifeline. 1914, born into an aristocratic Russian family. 1919, family exiled and moves to Brussels. 1933, studies at the Belgian Royal Academy. 1938, settles in Paris. 1939-40, serves in the French Foreign Legion. 1944, holds his first solo exhibition, in Paris. Becomes friendly with Georges Braque. 1952, his exhibition in London is enthusiastically received. 1955, kills himself in Antibes. Abstract composition painted just as he was lightening his palette. This is typical of de Staél's abstract work. Dark areas of paint are set against contrasting lighter patches, while the entire painting is built up with strong textures. 1949, Oil on Canvas, 162 by 114 centimeters, Pompidou Center, Paris, France. Closer look. Heavy application. For most of his career, de Staél applied paint to his canvases in thick layers, using the palette knife or trowel more than the brush. Les galantes. De Staél was a music lover and was frequently inspired by it. This work was the result of a visit to a ballet set to music by the 18th-century composer Jean-Philippe Rameau. 1953, Oil on Canvas, 155 by 118 centimeters, private collection. Les Tuts de Staél later pictures are more representational. The broad patches of paint in are this painting of roofs delineated by contrasting frames and the wash of color indicating a Parisian skyline. 1952, Oil on Canvas, 200 by 150 centimeters, Pompidou Center, Paris, France. Alberto Giacometti. B. Borgonova, 1901, Dicha, 1966. Swiss artist Alberto Giacometti is best known for his sculptures of thin, elongated human figures. However, his first sculptures were flat, almost two-dimensional, and showed his interest in primitive art. By 1930 he had become a surrealist, attempting to evoke fantastic images from his unconscious. From the mid-1930s he went back to working for models, representing the exterior rather than interior world. Finding it difficult to translate reality into sculpture, he increasingly worked from memory, with his figurines becoming smaller and smaller. He spent World War II in Switzerland, but returned to Paris in 1945 and renewed friendships with Picasso, author Simone de Beauvoir, and philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. His work epitomized the existentialism of post-war Paris, his elongated figures an anguished response to solitude and death. Lifeline. 1901 born, the son of painter Giovanni Giacometti, 1922 moves to France in his early 20s, 1941-44 stays in Geneva, Switzerland, for 3 years, before returning to Paris. 1962 wins main sculpture prize at the Venice Biennale. Giacometti's interest in surrealism is evident in this bronze sculpture. Its disembodied figure, severed hand, and elongated furniture are all typical of surrealist art. 1933 bronze, height 143 centimeters, Pompidou Center, Paris, France. Caroline. This is typical of Giacometti's portraits, the elongated figure sitting face on, her face partly hidden and with a haunted expression, the background only roughly filled in. 1962, Oil on Canvas, 100 by 81 centimeters, Kunstmuseum Basel, Switzerland.